Hello, gorgeous. Today I bring you a different kind of a story. And his name is Nirish Shakya. Years ago, back in my corporate days, my company brought him to run a design thinking workshop. And I still remember how he fought, how he listened to all of us in that group and the way he paid attention to all of us. That stayed with me. And we had a quick exchange before, and he reminded me the workshop happened back in 2021. So I had already started my therapy back in 2021. So I was on that journey of being more aware of myself and seeing people around me. So this is how I could notice. So today, Nirish is a designer, a coach, an educator, and his work is about self-awareness. It's about being courageous, creative courageous, and meaningful work, helping people reconnect with their own inner world. He's the founder of Unthinking Space and the host of the Design Feeling podcast, which is the original name, but you are bringing it back to the Unthinking Space. And yes, that reconnecting, that feeling, it stayed with me ever since. And I'm so happy he accepted my invitation. Welcome to the Catching More Green Lights in Life podcast, Nirish.
Thank you so much for that lovely intro and the warm welcome, Chris. Finally, we've been planning this for a while, and
Yes.
finally great to kind of make it happen today.
Yes, I'm so happy. By the way, I didn't ask you how late is in your place.
Well, I'm currently based in Kathmandu, Nepal, so it's not too late. It's like 6:21, so around like 4 or 5
Okay.
hours ahead of you. Yeah.
So beautiful, Nepal. I always wanted to come to Nepal. It's on my list. I will.
While I'm here, invitation is there. Feel free to come over anytime.
Very nice. Thank you very much for the invitation. So before I go into the questions, I always mention to the audience how I meet the guest, but I already mentioned in this. It's just like for the audience to understand. We stayed in touch. Nirish shared his LinkedIn account with all of us back in 2021. And I was so excited that I can still follow his work. So I followed him ever since, and we stayed in touch, and here we are. So Nirish, I have a few questions for you, and it's not necessarily so much for me, but it's for the audience, and I'm sure they will get so much wisdom from you. And I'm going to start with my first question, and I brought my phone where I have the questions.
Awesome.
So in your yes, of course, because I already know many things about you, and you also mention publicly on LinkedIn, on many articles, also I think on your Substack piece that you used to work for companies or for corporate world, and in 2021 you decided to go independent. And I would like to ask you, what exactly happened or what triggered for you to go independent, and why at that time in 2021?
Wow. Well, first of all, thank you for the question. I think that it was not like an instant decision to kind of go independent, right? So I think probably like lots of little things happened over maybe the 5 years or so leading to that. And I think that my story starts in actually Sydney in Australia. And, I was a very good student, traditional sense, being a bit of a high achiever, would get all my kind of high distinctions and please the teachers and please the parents. And the traditional path out of a university is get a job. And I had a computer science degree. I think the automatic default path for me was to get an engineering job. And I got a job. I was an engineer for like 5 years. And there was something missing there. I was like, I'm not very happy here. Like, I don't even know what I'm doing here and why I'm doing it. Like, who's using the products I'm building? All I'm doing is just like typing lines of code every day, all day. I didn't even like meet the real people who was actually using the software, the products that I was creating, right? And when I asked my boss or the founder of the company, like, who are we building this for? Like, why are they using it? They're like, we don't know. Like, as long as they're using it, that's fine, right? I remember like the only time we actually heard from people who were using our product was when they were complaining about it, when they're not happy about it. They're like, this doesn't work, or I can't press this button, or this doesn't make sense. I remember like when that happened, like the only conclusion that we got to in the team was that, well, these people who are complaining must be stupid. And and I was like, really? That's the only answer we have? Back then, like I was also doing my postgrad as well, and part of that postgrad was was something called human-centered design or design
Mm,
thinking, right? So we're kind of like learning how to design products and services, around the needs of real human beings. And when I
mhm.
started learning about these techniques, I was like, whoa, what? You need to actually speak to real humans before you actually build something for them? I was like, that's like mind-blowing concept.
Yes.
So I couldn't go back to the way I was doing things before, like just blindly building things, never questioning anything, and just hoping for the best. So that kind of led me to a pivot in my career. So after like 5 years in engineering, I basically decided to kind of like switch to a completely different field and go into user experience design to actually design things for real human needs. And then after that, I moved to London in 2014, and this was when everyone in my family was telling me to like, yep, it's time to settle down. Now that you're married, time to settle down, start a family, buy a house, stay in that safe job, climb that corporate ladder, just the usual kind of thing, right? And
The classical, yeah.
the classic things. And then my wife and I was like, F that. We're going to leave all of this in Sydney. We had a very comfortable life, we're going to leave all of that and move as far as possible to the other side of the world. So we decided to move to London. And everyone was like, why are you moving to London? Like, you live in Sydney. It's like the best city in the world. Beaches, sunshine, barbecue, you name it, right? Better pay. And London, it's, gray, it's raining, lower pay, like, cramped small houses. What are you doing? But for us, it was this kind of sense of adventure, something different,
Yeah.
sense
Yes.
of like exploring the world that kind of like made us go there, even though, it was a
Mm.
bit of a compromise in lifestyle. It was like no more
Mhm.
sunshine, no more barbecues, no more kind of like, good income. So yeah, but moving to London was one of the best decisions I made. But then again, I was still kind of like conditioned to believe in, yes, you gotta get a good job. You gotta, work for a good company. That's what I
Mm.
did. I worked for a consultancy. After that, I moved to a big corporate in the UK. The job was good, pay was good, work was
Mhm.
good. But even then, like there was something missing there. Like, what was that something that was missing? So obviously, 2020, the pandemic happened,
Mhm.
and we all got stuck in our indoors
Mhm. Mhm.
walls. And that's when I realized, for me, work was not just about the work. For me, the work was about, the people that I get to spend time with, the
Mhm.
the energy that I get to share with them, and that was completely cut off for me, like in during the pandemic because of lockdown, right? So
Mhm.
work just became about work. It's just like you open your laptop in the morning, do your work, close your laptop, and then rinse and repeat. And around that time, I think, throughout those years, there's a few kind of like cases of like, for example, workplace bullying and so on, that I
Oh.
experienced, which I just thought it was just part of the job. It's like, yeah, it's just part of being a professional that you have to just tolerate it and deal with it,
Mhm.
right? I didn't realize that, there's this thing called like toxicity when it comes to like, workplace culture. And that's
Mhm.
something you need to kind of speak up, against. But also around the same time, like because of COVID, I was put on furlough. So, because work was
Ah.
drying up, I was working for a tech consultancy in London. And,
Mhm.
a lot of the clients were kind of like, cutting down their budgets and things like that because of COVID.
Mhm. Mhm.
I was put on furlough, but then I was asked to come back from furlough, and I
Mm.
was given this new project, and it was for this kind of like fintech company, and they were basically kind of funded by this big private equity, and they're
Mm.
working on a project that I didn't really have my heart set on. Right, it was basically kind of like making rich people richer.
Yeah, yeah.
But, I didn't have a choice. Like, it was either furlough or, doing a project I didn't really enjoy doing.
Mhm.
Um, and because like I was being sponsored by my company, I was kind of worried that, if I didn't accept the job, I probably would not have a job to get back to. And then I would have to
Yeah.
kind of like leave the UK and go back to Australia, which is not
Mm.
doesn't sound too bad, but I didn't want to go back to Australia just then. It was like
Yes.
it's still kind of I wanted to kind of explore, Europe and the world. So I took the
Yes.
job. And yeah, like as I expected, I didn't really enjoy the project. I didn't feel like I had a sense of autonomy and agency
Mm.
to what the decisions that they had to make. And I made a commitment to myself, which was, all right, as soon as I get my, permanent residency in the UK, I'm going to give my, notice and I'm going to go my own way. And so I basically, as soon as I kind of, got my residency in the UK, I did the same, what I had planned. I gave my notice. I had built a bit of a runway and I basically told myself, I'm not going to look for a job from a desperate position. Right. Because I think it's the
Mm.
desperation that kind of makes you settle for less. And I
Absolutely.
think it's the mindset that really made a difference in terms of like, the next step of my career. So from that point onwards, like I basically, as soon as I left my job, the CEO of the consultancy said to me, hey, my friend who owns this big company in the UK is looking for a consultant. Do you want to have a word with him? And I was like, nah, I'm not interested. But I'll have a coffee with him anyway, just to kind of see what the work is. So I
Yeah.
had a coffee with him, and the work sounded really interesting. And I basically told him, I only want to go available for like a couple of days, and if you need someone for a longer time, that's not me, right?
Mhm.
So I was at a position where I did not care anymore.
Yeah,
Like I
yeah,
didn't
yeah.
care about that
Mm.
job. I didn't care about making money, right? I had this position of kind of like control over the negotiation, and I was able to charge a pretty high day rate. I gave them a very high day rate, and I thought they were going to say no. They're like, nah, we can't afford that. But they say, yeah, that's fine. I was like, what? Really? You're going to pay me that amount of money per day?
Of
And it
course.
was like so much more than what I was earning as a full
Yeah.
time employee, and that really surprised me. And that's when I realized, you know what? Like the way you carry yourself, the
Mm.
mindset that you bring into the world is how people see you. Will see through, if you are desperate for something, people will see that and they'll basically try to kind of like manipulate you in those kind of scenarios. But I think what I learned from that was whoever cares less, especially in a negotiation, wins, right? So I cared less. I think I won. And from that point onwards, my confidence was like so high. I'm like, yes, if I can do it like here, I can do it another time. And then another job, same thing. I just basically threw in like a really high day rate because I didn't care. And they said, okay, we'll probably waste more time looking for someone else. So we'll just hire you now because we already know you, and so yeah, we'll pay that money. So yeah, it was great, for a couple of years. And what I realized was that when you kind of work for yourself, you can set your own value, you can create your own brand, and I think that's such a powerful exercise in living and working. Because when you're working for someone else as an employee, you don't have that luxury. You don't have that freedom.
Mm-mm.
You
Mm-mm.
just take what you're given. But when you're working for yourself, when you're independent, you have that freedom, and that's something that I think I wish more people experienced.
What a beautiful story. Guys, by the way, I'm hearing for the first time this story because I love to hear the stories live as well. This is amazing. Your story is amazing and you absolutely deserve it from everything I know about you. And it's so beautiful because you found that place. It was a journey also for you. You weren't all of a sudden self-confident. You build yourself up. Of course you had so much value, but you are still needed to go into that place where you needed to go out and try it and see how the word resonates. And it did resonate, right? That was pretty much
Absolutely.
this
Yeah.
journey.
Yeah. And thing is, something that I realized in that journey was that, like, when I quit my job, I didn't have another job lined up. And if it was a newish, like literally maybe 2 years before that, it would have been shit scared. Like, what? You're quitting a job without having another job lined up? But what I realized was
Exactly.
that when you take that leap of faith into the universe will actually carry you. It will actually throw a net for you that will actually, keep you safe. So
Oh, yeah.
don't be afraid to take that leap of faith, even if it's a leap into the dark. Something or someone will take care of you.
Absolutely. I absolutely agree with you. And that's exactly how I live since basically a few months. Your story resonates so much with now my own start and building my own small company and having my first customer. By the way, now I'm going to have a talk with an organization for giving them marketing consultancy. So, and I haven't really done much for it. It just comes to me naturally because I like the way you said, I also decided, you know what? I'm done throwing CVs out into the void. No one reads my CV. I know it because no one calls me and I have
Well,
so much
nowadays, like,
experience.
it's probably just AI reading your CV, not even a human being, right?
Of course. But I decided I'm done with this nonsense. I am doing my own thing. I know that the company will want me if they will get a chance to talk to me, but they don't. So decided a while ago, I'm done. I'm building my own thing with the resources that I have. But obviously for the audience, it's important to understand I am in this place after a long time of finding out who I am and how everything works for me and what am I good at, right? So I'm in this place and exactly like Nirish, I had some savings. I had the right environment for me. I said, okay, for me, this is working. I don't have kids. I don't have a partner. My parents are young enough to take care of themselves. So I can only take care of myself and the squirrel Lulu that she only eats 1 nut a day, right? It's not much. And I don't eat that much, right? So it's fine. Let's do it. Let's do it for the first time. Be in control. And it's working.
Love it. Love that.
So, Nirish, how was the first year? But you already explained to us how you kind of like you were on a roll and it was just like a momentum to keep creating opportunities and keep coming to you, right? In a very natural way. Did I
Yeah,
get
I
that
think
right?
I think the first year surprisingly was relatively very much easier than I thought it would be.
Okay.
I think, the transition from being an employee, a consultant to a freelance consultant was relatively easy. I was pretty much doing the same thing that I was doing as an employed, consultant and a designer.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for like a few years that was super, relatively super smooth journey for me. But what
Mm-hmm.
I realized was that one thing that I forgot to do was to actually, as I was like, delivering work, something that I forgot to do was to actually, go find new work, right? Because as an
Ah,
employee, you didn't have to do that because work was given to you. And then you just do the
yes.
work, got your paycheck. But as a self-employed or as a freelancer, as an independent person, you also have to kind of invest time and energy on going and finding new work. And because like I was so busy just doing the work and delivering the work, I didn't have a lot of time actually going and finding new work, right? So
Yes.
and I think that's when I realized that, you know what? Yeah, if you don't kind of like invest time and money on watering like grounds,
Yes.
that ground will remain barren, right? So
Yes.
that's been a hard learn lesson for me. And especially because like over the last few years, I've been trying to kind of go more into like coaching more than just
Mm-hmm.
consulting because
Mm-hmm.
what I realized that, as a consultant or as a designer, as a consultant, as a practitioner, yes, you can actually add value into the organizations, but that value can be, very like difficult to see because
Mm-hmm.
you do the work, you're like, okay, what impact did it have in the real world? It can be like can be a bit of a lagging indicator. But what I saw
Mm-hmm.
from things like coaching was that the value becomes more immediately visible, right? So
Mm-hmm.
as a coach, like I can clearly see, okay, the impact that I'm having in someone's life in terms of the way they see the world, the way they go out and make a difference, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so because I wanted to kind of go more into coaching side of things, again, I found it difficult to again reshape myself into this new world that I wasn't very familiar with. And so I had to, go get my coaching certification and now I'm working towards accreditation and so on. Again, I had to be a beginner again. I couldn't just like use the same tools and techniques and frameworks that I was so comfortable with as a consultant. I mean, there were some overlaps, but a lot of times you had to kind of start over again. And when you start over
Mm-hmm.
again, you have to have that humility to be a beginner again. Like,
Yes.
yeah, I don't know
And
everything again. I'm not
curiosity.
an expert anymore. That's right. You got to have the
Yes, yes,
curiosity
yes.
And being okay with not knowing everything again, being okay with like, yeah, like I don't know anything here. My mind is freaking out. My mind wants to kind of
Mm-hmm.
take me back to that comfortable world, the comfortable corporate world, the consultancy world. And yeah, it does take a lot of, I guess, yeah, mindfulness and self awareness to just say, hey, it's okay. You're not going to die. You're still safe. Just stick to the journey, even though it feels uncertain.
That's so beautiful. I'm so happy you talk about self awareness, self realization, and mindfulness. And from everything you say, you sound you found your way, and you are very grounded. And yeah, you might have your ups and downs, but I think the fact that you go into those new fields. I've read about one of your projects recently, learning about AI, working with the agents, right, on a project. And you are a beginner like all of us, and you went all in with that, with this. Maybe like kids go, right, when they want to learn something, they are so curious, they are so excited, they are so into it, and they just go and they forget about what's happening around. And I felt like this is whenever I read a post from you on LinkedIn, that's the energy I read from your post, right? That I love that curiosity and passion, like you go into it. And I think that's why it keeps you so grounded, because you have so much experience and you bring so much value, but you sound so grounded, so humble with everything that you do. And that is amazing. That's one of the skills I admire the most about you, that you are so grounded.
Oh, thank you very much, Chris. And I think the feeling is very mutual here. I think I learned from your book in terms of the power of humility, right? Like every time you moved yourself to another country or another situation, the amount of humility that you needed. I remember the story that you told about, settling into Germany and like how you felt so out of place, coming from Greece. And yeah, I think
Yes.
humility does take you places, and humility does take you further, a lot further than just thinking that you know everything and that, you're the best.
That is so true. Now, thinking about the audience, let's say they are not in this lucky place we are. I think we are in a lucky place, and they are struggling. They are not happy with what they do necessarily, but it's also fine. That's what they did most of their life. They know they could do better. Maybe they fear the future. And what would you recommend them in terms of start this journey of being more self-aware and coming more to themselves instead of being on this autopilot state of mind?
I think that's a really difficult change to make, and I've experienced it myself. Right, like it's easier in theory, but in practice, it's really really difficult because life is difficult. Life is very busy. So many things are, craving our attention on a daily basis. You have
Mm.
family, work, bosses, friends, colleagues, you name it. There's social media, AI, like there's so many things that
Mm.
is grabbing for our attention and time
Mhm.
and energy on a daily basis. And now we are asking people to, become more self-aware, and people like, what does that even mean? Right? Um,
Yes.
and where do I even start? And I think something that I wrote recently was that like every time you kind of think of starting something new, it's like, oh, I need to kind of start meditation or start exercising or start
Mhm.
running.
Mhm.
I think that feeling of starting something, it brings about a lot of resistance. It's like, oh yeah, I need to now add something more to my day and do
Yes.
something else. And that takes effort. And the
Mm.
brain is designed to resist, effort, right? Brain is designed to conserve energy. So I think rather than kind of like, thinking of it as starting something new, and the mindset that I've been kind of practicing is I'm not starting anything new. I'm just continuing my journey of, learning something more about me, on a daily basis, right?
Mm.
And some practice that's really been a game changer for me is to wake up in the morning and write down my thoughts, like stream of consciousness, unfiltered, raw, unedited. Just keep writing. And I learned this practice from Julia Cameron, the person who wrote The Artist Way. And I was actually thinking about you when I read that book, because your book reminds me of a book by Elizabeth Gilbert, Eat,
Yes,
Pray,
of
Love.
course. Of
Yeah,
course, yes. I haven't read the book, I must admit, but I saw the movie.
yeah, Julia Roberts, but the book is a lot better.
I can imagine.
And Elizabeth Gilbert was actually inspired to write her book by Julia Cameron.
Ah,
And she actually has her own morning pages practice as well, where you wake up and you write 3 pages, unfiltered, raw thoughts. And I like to call it my morning mind dump. So I'm literally like dumping all the crap, all the poo, the metaphorical poo from my brain onto a piece of paper for 3 pages, right? I don't time myself. I just like grab my coffee and I just like write whatever comes to mind. And what I've been noticing is that when I write my thoughts down, even if it's for 5 minutes, even if it's like one sentence, right? What happens is there's something really powerful happens in the brain, whereas that thing that was floating, that poo thought that was floating in my head, now I can actually see it on paper. And when I see it on
mm,
paper, it becomes so much more clearer. And I can actually take a step back from it and see it with a more kind of neutral perspective. And now I can do
mhm.
something about it. So if I just write down something right now saying,
Yeah.
I am feeling hungry, right? It's not just like a thought in my head. It's something that I can now see. It's like, okay, so what can I do about it then? Okay, maybe I can go grab a snack, right? Or I can make myself dinner or something like that. I can now actually turn that into action, right? I can turn that into a to-do list. I can turn that into an email that I can send to someone, right? Even if like it's just one sentence that you write down. So I would say my recommendation is if you're feeling stuck, if you feel like, oh, you've got so many responsibilities in your life, you're doing the same thing over and over again, you just feel this kind of like numbness, this numb, mundane kind of like pain, I would say don't try to change everything. I would say start where you are, use what you have, and do what you can. Even if you have like only 5 minutes, use those 5 minutes. Even if you only have 2 minutes, use those 2 minutes
Mm.
to, just like I said, write down whatever thoughts come to mind just for 2 minutes. Set a timer for 2 minutes. You don't have an excuse. You can't say, I don't have 2 minutes. Yes, you do have 2 minutes. In those 2 minutes, you might just pull out, I don't know, social media, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram. You're probably scrolling on that thing for like half an hour each day, or maybe more if you're tracking it, right? We're
Yes.
wasting so much time. Try to like carve out like a tiny slither of that just to kind of like see your thoughts, see what's going on inside that head. And then you can get so much more clarity in terms of like, yeah, what do you care about? Where's your energy being drained? What do you really want in life? All those things are going to be so much more clear. If you like keep writing, even if you write for like a week, things will become so much more clearer for you.
That's an amazing advice. Thank you so much. I love writing. I keep writing. I started my second book, but I've never done this. Never started in the morning. Somehow for me it works. Of course, with writing for the book, it's whenever I feel inspired. And then I have this habit of writing in the evening, but I'm kind of journaling. And I've been doing this gratitude journaling for a long time now, more than a year, and I find it amazing. But this is something else. What you are saying that you wake up in the morning, you don't put your because we all have our phone. Most of us, we have our phone that does rings right in the morning, and we grab it and we say, just to see who texted me last night, right? And this is how we go. We go on a roll. We forget about 20 minutes, half an hour, whatever. So you
That's it.
say, no phone. You get off bed. You jump off the bed. You get yourself a cup of coffee. And you get a piece of paper
Well, yeah,
and you
I mean,
write.
obviously, I jump out of bed, I go to the bathroom and stuff, like I freshen
Yeah.
myself,
You do your
urine actually
routine.
needs and stuff.
Yes.
That's
And
right.
then you write.
No. So I do a few things before then, right? So obviously, I wake up, I freshen up, I do my morning Surya Namaskar, a little bit of a yoga, a bit of a pranayama breathing exercises. Not too long,
Nice.
maybe like for 15 minutes. After
Nice.
that, and then I meditate for half an hour. And then I write my 3 pages of morning pages. So I mean, obviously you don't have to do like what I do. You can just like get up. In fact, if you're just starting out, I would say keep a very tiny notepad or notebook right next to you in bed. And as soon as you wake up, just write one sentence, right? Just get started with one sentence. It doesn't have to be 3 pages, right? So I would say thing is getting started is probably more important. Turning into a habit is more important than how much you write. If you can just like write one sentence each morning
Yes.
for 7
Yes.
days, that's better than like no sentence at all.
Absolutely. Exactly. So that's the challenge. You wake up in the morning, tomorrow morning you wake up, and even if you, whatever comes in your mind, you write it down.
That's it. Whatever comes to mind, you write it down.
It can be a negative thought or a positive thought, whatever, right? You start
Absolutely.
writing.
Like, that's right. Yeah, it doesn't matter. The writing process is not a process of analysis. It's not a process of evaluation. It
No.
is just a process of expression. And the way I see it, and I think
Mm.
I got this mindset, I learned this from Rick Rubin, who wrote The
Uh,
Creative Act, the book
uh,
called The Creative Act. And he basically talks about how we are just a channel, a vessel for the universe to express itself. So the way I see it is, whatever I'm writing, whether it's negative thoughts, positive thoughts, neutral thoughts, it's just energy from the universe that I'm channeling onto this piece of paper. So that makes it easier for me to like not judge my own thoughts because, hey, this is not my thoughts, it's just thoughts of the universe.
I agree. That's amazing. And that is also a very easy practice for everyone to start doing it. Thank you for
That's
thank
right,
you for
yeah.
this.
And now what I've started doing is, I mean, this could be another podcast episode, but now I've started basically taking pictures of my journal entries. I then upload it into my Obsidian vault. Obsidian is my knowledge management, personal knowledge management system. And then it syncs in with my computer's iCloud drive. And then Claude Code sees it. And then it scans my handwritten notes, analyzes it, and then it actually
Wow.
extracts like themes and patterns from my writing each day, coaches me if I'm going through any kind of difficulties. And another magical thing that happens is it actually extracts the content that I can write and publish in my newsletters and, blog posts and things like that. So this writing habit, this like just mind dumping all the poo in my head, is turning into this creative expression and also a writing habit that I can share publicly with the world.
That's amazing. That's really amazing. That's so cool. I'm looking forward to your book, by the way. I think you have
It's in the
announced it on
making. It's in the
LinkedIn,
making.
right? It's in the making. Yeah, I know.
I just need a sprinkle of your discipline, Chris.
I send it to you. I send it to you. That's so cool. I love it. Thank you so much for sharing and for the audience. I mean, the most of us, we are not that far, but we can get that far by starting small, slowly building this up.
Yeah, I mean, also, I don't think we are on a linear journey where, some
No,
people are ahead or some people
no.
are back. I think the way I see it is we're like tiny little aliens just floating in space in our own little spaceship.
Yes,
We're not in a,
yes,
in a race. We're not behind anyone. We're not ahead of anyone. We're just floating in space randomly, just like, little dots. And
yes,
wherever you are is where you need to be. And where you're going to be next is where you, need to be next. That's it, right?
yes, absolutely. Absolutely. That's so nice. Thank you for mentioning that and for your generosity. The audience will love you for giving them the permission, right? I have another question regarding how you, in general, you work with companies, startups, but also individuals, right? You said that you are focusing right now more on coaching and I want to ask you, when you get a customer and let's say is a high performer, a successful one, right? And they come on autopilot. They are numb, but they know they need to work on themselves or they have a certain situation that they want to go through it. What is the first thing you notice in them? Like the small thing you notice, and then if you could share that with us, how do you approach it? And I'm asking this question so that audience understands that this is like a real case study.
Yeah. I mean, I can definitely use like examples from some real clients I've worked with and some of their situations. So, for example, last year, or maybe like a few months ago, I had a couple of clients. They were working for some really big organizations. Actually, one of them was in Germany. Some really
Oh,
big organization there, and also another big organization in the UK. So, a lot of the times when clients come to me, they have this kind of feeling of this discomfort that they feel, but they can't exactly kind of pinpoint what's causing it a lot of the times. And,
mhm.
and a lot of times people seek help when they can't tolerate the discomfort anymore. right? Most people, tolerate that discomfort. I call it the tolerable discomfort, right? The discomfort is there, the pain is there. The shoe is a bit tight, but it'll do. It'll do. We'll still kind of put on the shoe every morning and walk to work, and we would deal with the pain. But when the pain becomes so unbearable, that's when people start to kind of, seek help, like coaching or therapy or whatever, right? So, um, my job is to first of all kind of trying to kind of help them understand, what is the pain that they're feeling, and what is causing the pain. And a lot of times I actually bring in elements of design thinking and user research into this process as well, in terms of like asking a lot of why and how and where and when, and kind of dig up a lot, like it's like kind of going on like an archaeology journey into people's kind of psyche, right? But then I don't just kind of let them stay there. What I do is, and one of the next steps that I tend to do pretty early in the journey is to kind of like get them out of their own kind of thinking minds and then get them into the future, right? Because we tend to kind of think too much. We tend to overthink our situation in life and what we can do and can't do. And because we're so overthinking, we feel like we have less power than we think we do, right? And especially because of our negativity bias, we tend to kind of think like, we're more stuck than we are. We're like, yeah, we got bills to pay, we got, bosses to please, we got families to feed. And we always think in terms of like, yes, but. I'm not sure if you remember that. I might have done this exercise in my workshop, but we always think like, yes, I want to do that, but I've got this other constraint, right? So the first thing I want to try to do is to kind of get them to go from a yes, but thinking to a yes, and thinking. What is the possibility, right? What can we do? Doesn't matter whether you can do it or not. What can we do? So I get to basically kind of, go do some like visualization exercises to, first of all, I think it's called the Odyssey Plan, and this actually from the book called Design Your Life by Bill Burnett and for the second guy's name, but they're like professors from Stanford University who teach design thinking there, and they basically use that technique to apply it to helping people design their own life. And it's basically kind of like visualizing three things. First is you visualize your future, let's say in 3 to 5 years' time, if you're on your current path. So if nothing changed in your current path, right? Everything stayed the same. You're still in the same job, doing the same thing over and over again for the next 3 to 5 years. What does that life look like for you in 3 years' time? So I get them to kind of visualize that, right? A lot of times people are not happy with that vision. It's like, yeah, I'm still dealing with the same shitty colleagues, the same shitty bosses, the same bullying, the same toxic environment, whatever, right? The same numbness. And then I get them to kind of visualize the second part, which is if you were a bit more courageous, right? If you kind of went for your goals, your aspirations, right? What would that vision look like for you in 3 to 5 years' time? Where would you be? What would you be doing? Who would you be spending time with, right? What does that world smell like? What would you hear? What would you say? What would you look like in terms of expressions, your body language, the expression on your face, the feeling in your body, right? I'd really get them to kind of embody it. And then there's a third visualization, which is if path A and path B were no longer options anymore, and you could just go crazy with your life. You just went crazy. We call it the wild card path. Like you just went crazy with your life, and did whatever you wanted. What would that life look like? So, and I'm pretty sure like, like some of the life decisions that you took in terms like moving countries stuff, probably like, would be some of the wild card path that you took, right? To kind of like just go out there and experience the world and experience what life can give you. So what I try to do is I basically try to kind of get people to experience that in their mind and in their body right now, today, without actually having to go and make those changes, right? When I get them to do that, so for example, one of my clients last year said, yeah, I actually want to go on a motorbike ride with my wife around Europe. Right?
Amazing.
Yeah. And now they're actually planning to do that. They're actually planning no, I don't think it's a motorbike ride per se, but they're actually planning a trip together as a couple, and something they hadn't done in a while. So what I tend to do is like, for example, with these clients, I tend to kind of like get them to be in touch with what really, really matters to them personally. And sometimes when we're so busy on a day-to-day basis, it can be really easy to kind of lose touch with what is really important in our life, because the thing that is in front of you becomes more important. They're paying the bills, they're doing the job and whatnot. But there's always, like you said, like in your book, like there's that whisper that is so hard to hear in the noise of the daily life.
Yeah.
I have this little post-it that you might like. Always got as a reminder here. It says, don't let the noise of your mind drown out the whispers of your soul. I'm
Oh,
sure
how
you can relate to that
beautiful.
as well.
How
I'm
beautiful. Absolutely.
And I'm paraphrasing Steve Jobs in that quote there. He said something similar, but I like my version better. And basically, what I tend to do is to kind of help people quiet their mind so that they
Mm,
can listen to those tiny whispers. And it's really difficult to listen to these whispers when the
yes.
world is so noisy, when the mind is so noisy, right? And that's why
Yes.
I think these daily practices of writing by yourself, or even meditating, or even dancing, or running, or going for a walk can be so beneficial to help you listen to those whispers. And the thing about people is that, I think I read this from another book, 101 Essays That Will Change the Way You Think by Brianna West. And he wrote something like, the universe is always whispering to you. It's always sending you little whispers. But a lot of times we miss these whispers until these whispers
Yes.
turn into screams, right? We
Yes.
let these whispers turn into screams. And that's when, sometimes it's just too late.
You share so much. Amazing. Thank you for sharing the story of your customer. And, that's so nice. It's something that the audience actually could try it for a short period of time, because I was just thinking quickly while you were telling this story. I took time on my own and listened to connect to myself, and I heard the whisper clearer and clearer, and I knew what I have to do. But the majority of people don't have the luxury that I had to do that. But then what you just said, you put them in those situations where they can imagine different cases, scenarios, because they will come with their default. Yeah, but my life, it's so difficult and I have to do this and I need to pay the bills and I have to do this. And then you say, yes, I get it. But we are not here to talk about, right? We are here to let's imagine. You free them for a few minutes or an hour.
Yeah.
And then at the end of it, I'm sure they more confident that they want to do that. They want to change it. And look, the couple is going on a trip on Europe. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Even when we build products, right? Like in design thinking, we always start off with like a divergent mindset, right? Like we don't kind of
Yeah.
jump straight into building a solution. We actually look at what is possible out here, right? A lot of the
Yes.
times, we're like these horses on a race with blinders on, and we think
Yes.
the only way to win the race is to run as fast as possible to that goal. But what we're doing is we're like learning to take off those the blinders and blindfold in
Yes.
some cases to see
Hmm.
what's around us. Oh, you know what? That's not the race I want to run. There's nothing
Yes.
of value at the end of that race for me. There's a beautiful forest trail that I'd rather explore down this way, right?
Yes.
And we're so caught up in this highway of life that we forget to kind of like enjoy the little forest trails that we don't even see a lot of the times. So I think that's where I think, yeah, the power of that divergent thinking, or kind of a structured and in a way kind of enforced divergent thinking that you can introduce into your life can really help you see more things and see things more differently.
But what I hear from you, what you do is you disrupt their autopilot state.
Yeah. So essentially, the way to do that is to help them see things that they're not seeing. It's not that they don't have the capability. It's not that they don't have the will. It's just that they are looking this way when all I have to do is help them look slightly to another angle. It's like, have you seen that thing here? I was like, wow, that was not even part of my vision yet. And now that I can see it, now I can start to do something about going towards it.
So let me get this straight. You are showing them their blind spots, isn't it?
You could say that. That's part of it. Yeah. We're basically kind of trying to kind of help them see through the noise of the reality of the day to day and into a future that they desire. Now, just because we visualize a future doesn't mean it's going to happen. Obviously, there's work involved, but
Of course.
if we can actually get a sense of the direction that we want to head towards with agency, right? Not the direction
Mm,
that someone else has set for you, but the direction that you want to head towards, then we
mhm,
can slowly start to calibrate and course correct our direction, our plane to fly
mhm.
towards that. Right? And that's what we're trying to do. We're like saying,
Yeah, yeah.
okay, your plane is flying from, let's say, Dusseldorf to New York, right? And that's someone else has told you, hey, okay, fly from Dusseldorf to New York. You're like, you haven't questioned it. You just kept flying. And now you realize there's nothing in New York that I enjoy. I'd rather fly to, I don't know, Rio in Brazil. So
Yes.
before, you didn't even know something called Rio existed, Rio de Janeiro, right? And now you know Rio, beaches, samba, football. You don't get that in New York. Now, just because you know that Rio exists doesn't mean you can start flying there straight away. You're going to have to kind of change your angle one degree at a time, right? But you're going to have to start. And that's when, once you get that realization, we can start to actually make a plan as to, okay, now how do we course correct enough so that you can start to fly your plane from flying to New York to flying to Rio and enjoy your samba.
That's amazing work that you do. So if, let's say, someone from the audience wants to go on that journey, because I'm sure everyone who is listening to my videos and our video, they are already on that journey. They are searching, right? This video will pop up in their feed because they are on a journey of want to change something, wanna get a joyful life, a better life. If someone listens to this episode and says, wow, I really connect with what he's saying and I would love to work with him, how does it work? Would you quickly explain to us the process? And let's say, of course, everyone will have their personal life, personal experience, but if you would say an average numbers or a package, how do you work with them?
I mean, first of all, I don't want to kind of make it sound like I'm kind of plugging my service here, obviously. You don't need a coach.
Mhm.
You don't need anyone to kind of do this journey. Like you can literally do this journey by yourself, right? The
Okay.
only benefit that you get from working with a coach or someone else is that you get a better sense of structure, you
Mhm.
get a better sense of accountability, and you get feedback on
Yes.
on on your journey. And those things can be very powerful, but you can pretty much do this yourself as well. So in terms of like, and let me take a scenario of you trying to do this yourself, right? So
Mhm.
once you have an idea of what does that vision look like, the next thing that you want to do, and this is what I get my clients to do, is to actually visualize it on your computer or on a piece of
Ah,
paper. So you can either grab a piece of paper like this and draw what you saw, draw your vision,
yeah.
right? Did you see a beach? Draw a beach. Did you see a house in nature? Draw a house with some trees around it. Draw exactly what you see. Or if you don't like drawing on paper, you can always kind of go to like Pinterest and look for those images that you saw in your vision, and then create what we call a mood board. So a
Oh,
mood
that's
board is
amazing.
basically a mood is that a mood board? A vision board. Sorry, not a mood board. A vision
It's a
board.
vision board.
Vision board. A mood board is something different. A vision board where you basically kind of like collect some images that represent your vision. And I actually have my vision board as my wallpaper on my computer. Every morning when I log in, I see my vision of what I want my life to be, both in 2028 and um, what's the next one? 2030, right? So I did this last year, and it acts as a reminder for me in terms of motivating me, inspiring me, and giving me clarity to work on the things that really, really matter, that's going to move the needle to get me to that vision, right? So don't just kind of like do the visualization and just leave it. You're going to forget the visualization, right? Don't just keep things in your head. That's why I'm so passionate about putting things on paper, externalizing things, whether that's on paper or on a computer screen, where you can actually see it on a regular basis. So that's the next step. Second thing, or the second or third thing, or the next thing that I get my clients to do, and again, you can do this yourself, is to see what aspects of that vision that gravitates you towards it, right? So,
Mhm.
for example, with my client, they really want to go on this motorbike ride around Europe with a wife. Now, you might not be able to kind of like leave your job today and go on that motorbike ride, but what aspects of that life do you like about it? Is it the freedom? Is it the companionship of being together with your wife and going on an adventure? Is it the feeling the wind on your face? What aspects do you actually feel gravitated towards? Write it down and then see what aspects of those that vision can you live today. It doesn't have to be like after 3 years. It doesn't have to be. You don't have to go and buy a motorbike. You can pretty much rent a scooter or something, right? Or maybe just like go for a forest walk with your wife, or maybe like I don't know, like just go for a drive, like something that actually you can like live today and make possible today, so that you're not delaying that vision. You're actually bringing that vision to your present moment. It doesn't have to be the exact thing. You don't have to kind of go and buy a beach house, obviously. But you're bringing that aspect of that kind of life into your present moment to kind of what we call like prototyping that vision. You're trying to kind of test it out. Is that vision really something that I want to live, right? You might realize that, oh yeah, I have this vision just because I saw someone on social media, buy a bike and go around, America. But maybe that doesn't really fulfill you anymore, right? So you can test tiny prototypes of your big vision like today by building these little tiny prototypes. And that's what I brought in from the world of design, is to actually build these little prototypes that help you test out your vision for what you want to do in the future before you actually put all your savings and time and energy into it.
Thank you so much for sharing this with the audience. You are so generous and kind. You are going to say that I just came up with it, but you know what I just did yesterday? So I have my vision where I wanna be. And for the rest of my life, actually, my vision is quite clear how I want to live my life and what is the mission and what I'm doing. But I also have some personal things that I would like to still get. And the vision has been, I've been working on the vision, and like you just said, but I didn't do it consciously or from that knowledge side. It was just more, I act instinctively, right? I feel things and I just do them. And I felt like, let's see if this podcast resonates with me, because the mission is definitely, I love the mission, but can I do it? Can I be on the camera? Are the guests coming? Am I feeling? Do I hear them? Do I understand them? Do I connect with them? So I said, let's start slowly. And then I decided, okay, this is really working. I really love it. It's exactly what I love to do. And then I decided I'm all in. I go all in. That's the vision. And then slowly I started to readjust my vision. And you know what I just did yesterday? Because I heard someone, I forgot his name, and he said, write down on a piece of paper the vision. Don't use computer. You can use it, but think about the energy you put into the work when you write down with a pen on a paper. That is going to just spread out into the universe. So write down your vision and read it twice a day. First thing in the morning and last thing in the evening, right? And read it. And do it for days, do it for a month, do it for 2 months, and you will see how the synchronicities are going to appear in your life. And because what do we actually do? We program our direction. It's very clear for us the direction where we go. So whatever comes our way, we can nicely say, thank you, but no, because I know my direction. So this is exactly what I did yesterday. I wrote down the vision. It's like 3 pages, and I put them, I have a board in the kitchen. And after I do my routine in the morning, before I go on the yoga mat like you, I get a cup of coffee, and I always stare at the board before, when my coffee is kind of preparing, and I'm reading this. So I started to do it, and it's amazing. You just confirmed that.
Nice. I think I really believe that we in life, we get what we see, right? We get what we notice. And I think if we can deliberately place
Yes.
the things that we want in our field of view, I think we're more likely to intentionally put our time and energy in achieving those things.
So it is. Absolutely. And I so hope the audience will resonate with what we just discussed here today, and they will take this as a little experiment, right? And start trying for their own, slowly, doing all the things we said here. And obviously, I encourage everyone who feels like want to go deeper. And I absolutely I am pro hiring a coach, even if sometimes that can be an investment, but it's a great investment. The best investment you can do is absolutely in yourself. I will always say that because I've done it. I invested so many years of therapy and personal development, books, workshops, hours spending listening to YouTube channels, to amazing people that are generously sharing their knowledge. And I do believe that a coach will help you set you more clear or more stable on that direction, and can tell you, okay, you just derailed a little bit, let's get you back on track, right? I see a better rate of success if they hire a coach, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, I have 3 coaches helping me right now. I've got a communication coach, I've got a productivity coach, and I've got a business coach. And without
Yes.
them, like,
Yes.
I wouldn't have been able to kind of make as much progress in my life. And I remember,
Yes.
like, when I was in London, the one thing that I've always wanted to do was to kind of like, move back to where I was born, like to Nepal, to spend some
Mm-hmm.
more time with my grandmother, right? And my grandmother is my only grandparent who's still alive, and I didn't get to see my other 3 grandparents when they passed away because I was busy working or
Mm-hmm.
studying or busy
Mm-hmm.
with life, and
Mm-hmm.
I still kind of regret not being able to see them. And I really wanted to kind of spend quality time with my grandmother because she and her husband, my grandfather, are the ones who raised me as a child in
Mm.
Nepal. And I spoke with my coach, like, is this a good idea? And what she said was, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether you think it's a good idea or not, right? What really matters is, does this matter to you in this moment in life?
Yes.
And because of like the perspective of my coaches, I had
Mm.
more courage to actually take that leap of faith. And I
Yes.
basically left my flat in London, I had a really comfortable life, my community, and I basically uprooted myself again and then try to reroute myself back here, which is a very different place. Yeah, it's been one of the best decisions of my life. And sometimes, like, to take that kind of leap of faith in the dark, through the fog, you need that kind of, a neutral perspective who does not have the
Mm.
same level of emotional fears or attachments in that decision. Like, even if I mess up, the coach, it won't affect the coach. And that's why they can see things differently to how I can see it, because I might be too emotionally kind of like blocked in those big
Yes.
life decisions.
Yes, I absolutely agree. And you said it so beautifully. And I want to confirm what you just said, because I also got myself a coach, a business coach. She just helped me so much seeing the path moving forward with my business, with my own company. And you said something so beautifully. She, at some point in one of those sessions, she picked up a few pictures and she gave it to me, and she said, please look at the pictures and tell me which one do you resonate when you think about the podcast, the mission. Which one is it? There were different kind of pictures. So it was clear to me. I was like, this is the one. It was the sunflower. And she said, interesting. So what do you feel when you look at this picture? And I said, I feel peace. And she says, that's awesome. So you just define how you feel by doing this.
Yeah,
And
love that.
I
Love
would have,
that.
yes, and I would have never done that without her, without the coach.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. And yeah, I think my other coach, she actually is a tarot practitioner. And she actually pulled out a tarot card for me. And in that card, there was a picture of this person on a boat, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the way she read that card for me was that you're ready to go on a boat, right? You're ready to
Ah,
leave, but on that boat, you can only fit a tiny number of things. What are the most essential things, most important things that you're ready to take on the boat and leave everything else, right?
yes.
So I wasn't thinking of that. Like, because of that tarot card, now tarot, some people believe in it, others don't. I believe in it because it's a very scientific process of using these external prompts or triggers to help your brain make these associations that it otherwise wouldn't have made without that trigger, right? So that
Mm.
tarot card helped me make an association with this little thing, a man on a boat going somewhere different. So it helped me kind of see this my pathway. Now, if I was in a different scenario, I would have probably seen something different. But because I was already thinking about like, should I move or not? It's like, okay, this is it. This is the sign. So I basically packed up my flat, whatever I need to put in storage in London, packed the things that I really needed, put it on a boat, not a boat, a plane. And then I moved, right? So, yeah, like you said, whether it's a picture, whether it's a tarot card, whether it's something else, the universe is always showing you these little signs. I think you call them, little green lights, like little
Yes,
whispers, whatever you want to call them, right?
exactly. Green
And
light.
we need
Green
to be
light.
ready to kind of catch them and do
Yes.
something with them, take action with them.
Yes, yes, this is so cool. I don't think I was following any of my questions of the questions I had in mind, but it was clear to me that our conversation will just flow back and forth. I have to ask you one more question. We've been over the usual time I usually do, but I can talk to you forever, Nirish, and I have to bring you into another episode. But before I go, I need to ask my question. And the question, I can't ask you, how do you recognize a green light? Because it is clear to me from everything you just mentioned and what I know about you, you catch many green lights in life. But I'm going to ask you something else. What is the longest green light you ever caught?
Still for a very long time. Wow. So could you elaborate on that question a bit more?
So yeah, for example, I give you an example. So for me, this is a green light. I just got this green light and it's been transforming my life. And I think I call it like it's a long green light. It stays with me for longer than a day. So long story short, last year I was unemployed, still supported by the government in Germany with classes, courses, with financial support. And on the last stretch, I decided, okay, I'm not finding any job. I'm going on my own. So I went and opened my business, and I got a consultant from the agency for work in Germany. And I told her, okay, I am going to go independently. So I asked, she wouldn't have gave me anything. I went and asked, right? I created the opportunity for myself. And I said, is there something you can still offer me? You can still help me with my journey going independent. And she said, actually, yes, I can offer you this business coaching voucher. She gave me the maximum. 35 hours is the maximum. Exactly. And for me, it's like, my God, this is the longest green light I caught in my life because it's been helping me so much and I see the benefits I'm getting. That's my
Wow.
example.
Yeah. That's powerful. I think I can't really think of the longest green light per se. I think for me, the green lights for me come from people.
Uh-huh.
I am very much a people person. I get a lot of my energy from people. I always intentionally put myself in situations where I meet all kinds of people, different kinds of people from different backgrounds. So for me, like, it's not like the longest, but the amount of green lights I get is always, from the people that I meet. Like, for example, a conversation like this, or a
Uh-huh.
client that I meet, or a student that I teach, or I once was on a plane, and right next to me was a person, and we just started chatting, and we realized that this person was a director for a company for a software that I tend to use, and then that kind of conversation led to that person giving me a pretty much a free subscription, lifetime subscription to the product, essentially. And then we happened to kind of bump into each other in another conference in Dublin, literally like a month later, just because we kind of started chatting on a plane.
That's amazing.
I met some really good, like, some of my best friends I've met just by pure accident because my passport was stolen in Spain. And if
Oh
my
no.
passport wasn't stolen in Spain, I wouldn't have met these people, right? So I think for me, it's not been like this one green light. It's been like a series of green lights
Green
throughout my
light.
life. Yeah, because of the people that I met and because of,
Yes.
the situations that I put myself in that allowed me to meet those people. I'm not sure if
How
that answers your
beautiful.
questions,
It
but that's
does, it
what's been
does.
true for
How
me.
beautiful. How beautiful. And I can see it, how so many beautiful opportunities comes your way. Nirish, this has been absolutely amazing. I loved every second. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you so much for your generosity, for sharing all your experiences with us. I'm going to invite you again at some point.
Enough.
Is there something cool you besides the book? You said the book, but you didn't mention anything. Is there is something cool you are working on and you like to share with us? And I would be interested in if people want to reach out to you. Maybe there is a company, there is an employee working for a company, and they want to invite you to bring you in the way I experienced you
Mm.
as a consultant in a workshop. Where do people find you? And then I'm going to put them in the description below.
Yeah, absolutely. I have been running these workshops. I like to call them sprints
Uh-huh.
as part of my company, which is my company is called Unthinking Space. And I basically started this company to help people unthink the
Okay.
scripts that they've been taught to think and believe in as facts, right? Just because you think
Mhm.
something doesn't mean they're facts. So I basically use this platform to help people unthink and unlearn the things that they've been told as facts and rethink for themselves what is true for you, what really matters to you, and take like tiny little actions to make it happen. So I've been experimenting with these unthinking sprints. These are like tiny little workshops where I get people who are kind of, they have these dreams and goals or projects in life that they probably thought of like years ago, but it's been collecting dust. Nothing's happened. Life got busy.
Yeah.
So I basically kind of get them to reconnect with that goal or that dream and take a tiny action by the end of the workshop. The tiny action that gets them started and gets them like flying, rather than to New York, to Rio, like I said in the example earlier.
Mm.
So if people are interested in a session like this, I can help them with that, reignite their dream or goal and take a tiny little action before the session finishes. Obviously, like I also offer like a longer term kind of coaching programs that go from like 6 to 8
Mm.
weeks as well. I might be starting another kind of group coaching program, like a cohort soon. So yeah, watch out for that. If people want to kind of, reach out to me, ask any questions, if they want to jump into like a little virtual coffee, happy to help out with that as well. I'm not going to charge you for like a little coffee over Zoom. They can always reach out to me by finding me on LinkedIn, or they can go to my website, unthinking.space. There's no .com, just unthinking.space. So yeah, they can reach out to me there. And yeah, happy to chat to people.
Thank you so much. I love how simplistic you made it. Yes, obviously, that is your expertise and you are so good at it. Always
Oh,
thinking
thank you very
about
much.
people. You made it so easy for them, the way you even created a website, the way you did the name, right? The domain name. It's so lovely. I love it. And by the way, now I know the answer. You asked me before we start recording, what was it that, because I told you that I got so impressed with your workshop back in 2021 when I was working for this company. I'm so grateful that they brought you,
Oh,
they
thank
brought
you.
you in, and you asked me
And I'm
what was
grateful
it
that
that
we,
made.
we got to meet.
Yes, and you asked me what was it that made the difference for me, and I couldn't answer in that moment because this is how my brain works. It needs to think about. It goes deep and it go in analysis
That's,
and
that's
keep on
definitely as
going.
well.
And at some point, I come up with the answer. I know what you gave and what you gave me and what you gave me. I'm sure this is what you give to most of the people most likely you meet. You gave me an amazing gift. You saw me. Or
Thank you.
I felt being seen in that workshop, right? And it wasn't 101. There were, I don't know, 7 people, but I felt seen. And that was an
Mm,
amazing gift. And I haven't gotten this gift from many people in my life up until then. So
mm,
this is what you gave me. And I think this is a gift that you have. And it's amazing. And keep doing the amazing work, what you do. And I also wish for myself that one day I meet you face to face, you and your beautiful wife. Maybe I visit Nepal.
Well, like I said, we have a spare room ready for you if any time like you want to come over. Yeah. Also, thank you so much for saying that. I think it really means a lot to me, and mostly because growing up, I didn't feel seen, right?
Mm, mm,
Unless I achieved something. If I got a good grade, if I won a medal, that was the only time when I felt seen. Didn't never felt seen for who I really was. And I think,
mhm.
since then, I've always tried my best to be seen for who I am and also help people be seen for who they really are without the external accolades and the medals and the grades and the job
Yes,
titles and
yes,
whatnot. And I think
yes.
that's what we all want, right? That's what we want.
Of
We want to be
course.
seen.
It's the biggest gift in life we can receive from anyone. Thank you so much for doing that. Namaste. Like they
Well,
say in Nepal, right,
namaste.
Chama?
That's it.
Namaste.
You've done your research.
Of course. So thank you again for everything. And the audience, if you enjoy our conversation, I would absolutely recommend you to go and connect to Nirish via LinkedIn, chat with him, get a sense of what he's sharing more than here. And yeah, like this video, subscribe to the channel for more amazing guests. And I see you in the next one. Thank you so much, Nirish, again.
Thank you so much, Chris, for having me here. That was a great chat.
Bye.